Once known as the Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, the enigma known as Darth Vader left a wound upon the galaxy that would fester even decades after his death. A culmination of his own internal suffering and the manipulations of his master Darth Sidious, Vader's fall to the dark side was made manifest upon the sacking of the Jedi Temple in Coruscant, an atrocity that began the commencement of Order 66 and the deaths of countless numbers of Jedi. After the temple was purged of his former companions, and the vestiges of Sidious's past alliances violently cut, Darth Vader would confront his former master on Mustafar in an epic duel of fates. Eventually bested by Obi-Wan Kenobi and left to horrifically burn upon the infernal landscape, only through his sheer hatred did he survive long enough to be recovered by his newly made Sith Master. Due to his grotesque injuries, Darth Vader was forced to wear a cybernetic suit, trapped away forever from the outside world, as any semblance of his former self was totally lost. For decades he hunted Jedi survivors and combated the Rebel Alliance, putting the galaxy in a chokehold within his iron grasp. It wasn't until the discovery of his lost son, Luke Skywalker, that the man he had once been threatened re-emergence. During the final confrontation between father and son, Luke defeated his father and did what his father could not do. He rejected the dark side. Invoking the wrath of Sidious, Luke was subject to excruciating torrents of Force lightning and inches from death. Seeing the son as the man he could have been, Anakin Skywalker betrayed Darth Sidious and threw him to the Death Star reactor, finally fulfilling the prophecy as the Chosen One, but at the cost of his life. While balance of the Force came to fruition at last, the pain Anakin had caused the galaxy would never be forgotten, and whispers of legends can still be heard of those who sought his mantle.
Formerly a Jedi Knight originally raised on Tatooine, Ashrad Het was one of the few Jedi who managed to escape the devastation of Order 66. After working as a bounty hunter and making his way to Korriban whilst pursuing a bounty, Het discovered a holocron of the ancient Sith Zozon, one of the ancient Dark Jedi exiles who came to Korriban millennia earlier. Zozon offered Ashrad a chance for power and vengeance. Het accepted and subsequently fell to the dark side. After spending years in the tombs, he discovered that the Sith and the Galactic Empire had been defeated by Luke Skywalker and the Galactic Rebellion. Het, feeling purposeless, travelled to the unknown regions, determined to lose himself. At this time he ran into a confrontation with the intergalactic species known as the Yuuzhan Vong. He was ultimately captured and imprisoned, and was subjected to horrific forms of torture, having his right arm and left eye replaced, whilst also being implanted with Vong coral seeds. During this time he had a vision of him leading a great army of Sith, asserting order and his control over the galaxy. Using his new dark side powers, Het escaped and returned to Korriban and took up the title of Darth Krayt, while simultaneously creating the One Sith Order. However, during his pursuit of power and lasting order, Krayt ran into a problem. The Vong seeds were threatening to destroy him from the inside. As such, he sealed himself in stasis, hoping to preserve himself long enough to rid himself of the infestation and complete his vision for the galaxy. Krayt eventually learned of the young Cade Skywalker, one of the last of his lineage. Cade possessed a powerful and rare healing ability known as Dark Transfer. Seeing the opportunity that he had waited so long for, Krayt attempted to turn Skywalker to his side. Events following led to Krayt being defeated after a titanic struggle on Had Abandon. Despite surviving, Krayt was betrayed by his right-hand man, Darth Warlock III. Warlock would seal Krayt in stasis, whilst attempting to take the Order and the galaxy for himself. However, Krayt survived his betrayal, and with the aid of those still loyal, launched the savage attack on the Sith Temple. Eventually killing his betrayer, Krayt was now ready for his vision to be finally realised. However, the Master of the One Sith was later confronted by Cade Skywalker and eventually defeated. Cade would throw Krayt's body into the Coruscant Sun, preventing another resurrection. Krayt's hand Darth Nihil would take control of the Order and take the Sith back into hiding.
Due to his imprisonment within his cybernetic suit, Vader takes durability to the extreme, as he is able to shrug off injuries that would prove to be absolutely debilitating to the wide majority of combatants. In the reference book Darth Vader, a 3D reconstruction log, it is explained that Vader's suit is made of obsidian, reinforced durasteel, and plasteel, which is supposedly rumored to be further enhanced with Sith alchemical rituals. In consequence, Vader is able to withstand point-blank explosions and direct lightsaber strikes that would incapacitate, if not outright kill, even the most resilient of combatants. His showings of resilience go even as far as Vader surviving being buried under tons of rubble for an extended period of time. It is known that Vader had access to the Book of the Sith, and learned many ancient methods of bolstering his survivability even further, the most notable being the techniques used by Darth Malgus of the Old Republic era. In addition, despite the cumbersome nature of his armor, Vader was extremely quick and agile by making use of force-enhanced movement, allowing him to achieve blinding speeds and impressive acrobatics. These feats are numerous in number, and many of them have been achieved in a time where Vader was still becoming acclimated to his cybernetics. After this time, Vader's suit became a boon to him in combat rather than a curse, as he was able to crush flesh and bone with ease within the iron grip of his fists, and overcoming the downfall of his cybernetics became second nature to him. Because his suit provided him with a constant flow of oxygen and anesthetics, Vader could easily outlast many combatants through sheer endurance alone. However, Vader's suit did in fact have a weakness he was forced to safeguard at all times: his chest panel. A strike to this area of his suit could potentially cut his oxygen flow to his mask, or even hamper his movements altogether. However, Vader's fighting style safeguarded this weakness extremely aptly, which we will discuss in more detail later. On a final note, it is worth discussing one of Vader's most controversial and ostensible of weaknesses: his apparent weakness to electrical discharge. While it is true that cybernetics are typically extremely vulnerable to discharges such as force lightning, this is only to a very limited degree in the case of Darth Vader. Darth Vader's suit was reinforced with extensive insulation, allowing him to withstand force lightning for the most powerful of force users. It was only twice where his insulation had failed him. In the first instance, it was overcome by Starkiller, who used a lightning rod upon Kamino in conjunction with his own force lightning, amplifying its intensity to incredible limits. Despite this, Vader was not immediately hampered, and continued to function until his suit reached its limit. And needless to say, this instance was circumstantial, given the environmental benefits Starkiller was able to make use of. The second most recognizable instance is his death at the hands of the Emperor. Sith lightning from the hands of Sidious is the most powerful use of this ability within the entire mythos, and despite this fact, Vader was still able to overcome it enough to throw the Emperor into the Death Star reactor and fulfill the prophecy. However, it is stated in the Star Wars New Essential Chronology that it was in fact not Sidious's force lightning that ended his life. It was the immense burst of dark side energy emitting from Sidious's death that finally killed Vader. This is not to say that Darth Vader could withstand Sidious's lightning with nil effects. It would certainly kill him if given enough time. But given the strength of Sidious's lightning, it should put to rest any case that force lightning is somehow a trump card against him. All in all, Vader is an absolute powerhouse, capable of withstanding incredible amounts of punishment and dealing it himself through his mechanical strength.
Darth Krayt possessed incredible physical characteristics for a man of his age. There has been a lot of misconception to Krayt's biology, as many believe him to be a human-Tusken hybrid, due to him being raised amongst Tuskens. However, at the conclusion of his brief tussle with Anakin Skywalker, Ashrad Het revealed that he was human entirely, announcing that humans and Tuskens are not genetically compatible. This man went on to live an incredibly long life, and at the time of his death 138 years after the Battle of Yavin, he was approximately 185 years old. His lifespan was increased, courtesy of the Yuzhong Vong experiments, and Krayt himself noting that he had mastered Sith techniques to prolong life, as well as spending time in stasis. However, because of his time in stasis, Krayt's body would have been physically aged at roughly 110 years, as time in stasis does not age your body. Despite his age, Krayt's physique was utterly domineering. Whilst in a weakened state, he's been known to overpower the young Cade Skywalker with just one arm, and having displayed physical superiority over Celeste Morn and Darth Warlock III, the former of which whilst again in a weakened state. Whilst in this weakened state, Krayt has been known to outpace 4 of Rowan Fell's Imperial Knights all at once, and of course, keep pace with Cade Skywalker during their first fight, despite being in an even weaker state than previously mentioned, along with Cade being enraged. Krayt's endurance and tolerance for pain were voracious. He has spent years withstanding the pain of the Vong implants eating away at him from the inside. Whilst being held prisoner by the Yuzhong Vong, he managed to endure the effects of the embrace of pain. At the conclusion of his battle with Celeste Morn and Carnis Mur, the weakened Krayt was stabbed through the chest and blasted with a torrent of force lightning before being thrown off a cliff, and yet was still conscious when Warlock found him, having been able to cushion his blow with the force. Although many of these battles did prove costly for the Dark Lord, they are still a testament to the undying tenacity and willpower attained over the years of grueling challenges that Krayt has faced. To underestimate his capabilities would likely prove disastrous. Both of these combatants know pain beyond human limits and have endured injuries that would easily kill the most durable of combatants. However, despite the fact that Krayt will likely be more quick and agile than Vader, he hasn't shown himself capable of matching his physical strength nor his resilience.
When Krayt was overtaken by the Vong growth growing within him, he was severely weakened, even despite many of his incredible showings within this time. Darth Vader was forced to endure similar pain within his suit, but has grown to overcome it and turn his cybernetics to an advantage rather than weakness. Krayt has withstood some serious punishment, but Vader takes this step further through his insane feats of fortitude. And although the reborn Darth Krayt will not be forced to endure the pain of the Vongros, he is still unable to match Vader in this regard. Also, Vader has more showings of strength within his time, and although Krayt will definitely be able to contend and hold his own against Vader's physical power, it is still an advantage nonetheless. Due to this, we award Darth Vader the advantage in physicality. Before his fall to the dark side, Anakin Skywalker was already one of the greatest duelists the Order has ever produced. But upon his disfigurement and his dawning of his new self, Darth Vader had to acclimate to his suit and retool his fighting style to match his cumbersome armor and enhancements. However, Darth Vader wasted no time in this venture, and only mere weeks later was already confronting rogue Jedi and seeking to gain his revenge upon Obi-Wan Kenobi. Melding several lightsaber forms into his own unique style, Darth Vader was able to not only negate the penalties of his suit, but turn them into a boon to his technique. Already an expert in Form 5 Xian Anti-Gemso, Vader's new physique only further bolstered his immense strength. Now able to throw the mechanical weight of his suit into his attacks, his physical power was incredibly overwhelming for the majority of his combatants, as it had already been before his fall to the dark side. Now retooling his footwork and adding an economy of motion to supplement his heavy posture, Vader wove a tightly knit defense while penetrating through his opponent's guard with application of tenets from Form 2 Makashi. While Makashi users tend to lack power and are susceptible to strength-based attacks, Vader used his weight and heavy-handedness to plan his fighting style firmly, and also add in a significant degree of muscle to this form that was otherwise lacking. Well practiced in Ataru from his days as a Jedi, he can make leaping bounds and wide flourishes when it benefited him, while also being familiar enough with the form to counter it. Vader also incorporated brutishly violent physical strikes into his attacks, snapping bone and rendering his opponents nearly helpless, or worse. Just mere days after entering his cybernetic suit, Vader is already capable of engaging multiple Jedi Knights, killing numerous of them despite eventually being hampered by a Cortosis blade. Regardless, he is able to overwhelm an opponent with sheer physical might and retrieve a weapon from their corpse, proceeding to kill several more with either skill or tactical ingenuity. By the time of his final encounter with Obi-Wan Kenobi, his former master had noted he had become far more skilled than his former self, as he had spent the years leading up to this point hunting down and subsequently exterminating dozens of Jedi in single combat. Quite simply, Vader had melded several forms into his own unique fighting style, which was specifically specialized for hunting and destroying Jedi combatants. Already a prodigy before his fall to the dark side, and enhanced by his juggernaut-like suit, Vader was extremely well practiced in dismantling his opponents through either sheer skill or raw power.
Darth Krayt was an irrefutable master of lightsaber combat, considered to be a master in the art of war and possessing decades of combat experience, having fought through the grueling challenges of the Clone Wars, and having self-proclaimed himself to have killed thousands of enemies since his rise as the reigning Dark Lord of the Sith. His entry within the Legacy Campaign Guide confirms that Krayt is a specialist in the sixth form of lightsaber combat, also known as Nyman. The most balanced and flexible of all the traditional forms, Nyman adapted bits and pieces from all the previous styles into one cohesive fighting method that allowed for a great deal of combative versatility. Nyman was designed to allow its practitioners to maintain at least a reasonable level of effectiveness in combat, with little need for study and practice, allowing them to invest their time elsewhere. In keeping with Nyman's focus on adaptability and versatility, the form also places a heavy focus on the use of incorporated force-based attacks, and provides specialist training in the art of Jarkai dual-blade fencing, which is also Krayt's preferred usage of the form. In keeping with his chosen style's focus on adaptability, Krayt took full advantage of all the varied positions, attack sequences, and frequented the incorporated use of force attacks into his fighting style, further extenuating his ability to keep his enemies on their toes and off-balance them. Alongside this, during his time as a Jedi, Asherad Het was also known to possess advanced training in the unarmed fighting style known as Terraskaze, a fighting style which was designed specifically for non-force sensitive practitioners to contend with and defeat said wielders of the Force, by utilizing powerful strikes and placing a heavy focus on the anticipation of the foe's maneuvers. Ashrad was known to have trained one of his Tusken followers to mastery in this martial art after rejoining his people, and has been witnessed fighting scores of assailants alongside Anakin Skywalker, relying solely on his unarmed martial might and a gaffi stick, the preferred weapon of a Tusken. He also used his unarmed proficiency to disarm and enrage Anakin Skywalker during their brief misunderstanding, and frequented the incorporated use of these maneuvers into his fighting style against the exiled Obi-Wan Kenobi. Besides all of this, his time during the Clone Wars also had Het display proficiency as a marksman, though these skills will be of no use in a fight where he doesn't have access to a blaster. Krayt's achievements as a duelist were very worthy of respect, having contended with the exiled Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and although there were multiple advantages in place, such as Kenobi being out of practice, and Het having an environmental advantage, this is still worthy of note, considering that an even more out of practice Kenobi was still considered to be a formidable duelist and capable of stalemating Darth Vader himself. Besides this, Krayt's other achievements include him casually dominating 4 of Roan Fel's Imperial Knights, which were trained to be proficient in all forms of lightsaber combat, whilst he was also suffering from the terminal illness inflicted by the Von Coral Seeds. And of course, he managed to defeat and enrage Cade Skywalker years later, while even weaker, with Cade's escape being due to the intervention of his mother, and he performed admirably against the Myr Talisman donning Celeste Morn and Carnis Myr, appearing to stalemate his opposition whilst Myr was in control of Celeste's body, and holding an advantage whilst she was in control. And of course, he made short work of Darth Warlock III, driving his most powerful servant back, forcing him to resort to his mental manipulation powers to regain ground. Overall, Darth Krayt possessed a voracious talent with the blade, and his uncompromising experience and adaptability will give the most experienced of warriors a worthy challenge. This verdict was very difficult for us to call. Vader and Krayt both have shown that they were easily legends of the Order in their time as Jedi, and have even further honed their skill with a lightsaber upon their fall to the dark side. Due to his mastery of Nyman, Krayt is extremely versatile and capable of implementing force attacks into his fighting style with the utmost ease.
However, Vader is equally versatile due to his mastery of several lightsaber forms. It is also more specialized by melding them all into his own unique fighting style, which is specifically designed for eliminating force-sensitive combatants. While he can't match Krayt's force implementation, he has been seen combating a wider array of duelists of equal or greater skill throughout his time as a Sith, many of which he encountered before he was acclimated to his cybernetics. Vader was a renowned Jedi killer, having killed countless of scores of Jedi after the dawn of Order 66. And although Krayt nearly matches his aptitude in dealing with these sort of combatants, Vader takes it a step further through his extreme refinement. Due to this, we award Darth Vader the edge in dueling skill. Darth Vader's weapon was a single red-bladed lightsaber with a widened and lengthened grip to properly fit his mechanical hands. It featured a dual-phase function, which allowed him to utilize a standard meter-length or meter-and-a-half length blade. Other than these features, it was fairly standard.
Lord Krayt wielded two rather standard lightsabers, the first of which was his original Jedi lightsaber, which featured a form of some kind of leather around the hilt, improving one's grip over the weapon, and featured multiple loose trinkets from his kills during his time as a Tusken. The source of green focusing crystal used in this weapon is unknown. The second weapon was created sometime after he became a Sith and housed a single red-hued synthetic crystal as the focusing lens, whilst being encased within Yorick coral, like all lightsabers of the One Sith Order, and possessed a minor resistance to lightsabers. All in all, Krayt's dual lightsabers provide a multitude of combative options, enhancing his versatility in combat.
While it is quite clear that Darth Vader's lightsaber is the more technologically advanced piece of equipment, this does not detract from the fact that the additional options provided by the dual-phase function, however welcome, are still limited.
By contrast, Krayt's paired sabers offer a wider array of attack patterns, defensive stances, and ultimately possess more overall benefits for enhancing both his combative versatility and his unpredictability. We award Darth Krayt the advantage in weaponry.
Before his defeat and disfigurement upon Mustafar, Anakin was biologically the most powerful Force user in existence, his midichlorian count even surpassing Master Yoda's. Before he could realize his full potential, however, he was horrifically maimed, losing a very large portion of his living body. In consequence, Vader's true potential was nothing but a fraction of its former self, as Force powers require living flesh to manifest itself, and living flesh is a rare commodity upon Vader's mechanical being. Regardless, Vader was stated as being approximately 80% of Darth Sidious's power in the Force, a figure that undeniably proves that he was still immensely powerful. Due to the circuitry within his suit, Force Lightning was an ability that he had knowledge of, but could not possibly use, lest he render his life support systems inactive and submit himself to a painful death. Regardless, Darth Vader was an extremely potent user of telekinetic Force powers, able to lift extremely heavy objects and hurl them with the utmost ease. Vader has shown he does not even have to face the object he is gripping, as employed this maneuver even while locked in close combat, as he had done against both his son and Rowan's Shrine. In addition, he used this telekinetic might to crush opponents outright, by either choking them or even squeezing organs with incredible precision. Vader was also well versed in defensive Force powers such as deflection, which allowed him to repel blaster bolts and even force pushes from other Force users. This has been seen in numerous feats to significant degrees of magnitude. In addition, Vader is capable of Force healing and Force rage, allowing him to bolster his focus and potency while in combat, as well as heal minor injuries. While he can never make use of what is arguably the most potent of Sith powers, Darth Vader's telekinetic magnitude is enough to smother most of his combatants outright, and he brings a variety of tools to negate the powers of his foes. Given his immense power in the Force, he will surely bring these abilities to bear.
Darth Krayt was a master of the dark side, acknowledged by many as the most powerful Sith Lord of his day. His strength in the Force was considered to be great even during his time as a Padawan. His telekinetic aptitude was astounding, and he frequently employed his talents here into his fighting method, in keeping with his mastery of Naiman. He's been known to casually ragdoll the likes of Cade Skywalker and Darth Nihil, two combatants who both wield a great level of power themselves. During the events of Fate of the Jedi Apocalypse, Krayt also managed to resist a telekinetic attack from the Force entity Abeloth. However, Krayt's achievements within the Apocalypse story are largely outliers, as during his confrontation with Abeloth, his power was heavily amplified by the Darkside Nexus, the Lake of Apparitions, and him only fighting a mere avatar of Abeloth that also possessed only a fraction of her power, whilst she was weakened due to just coming out of a confrontation with Grandmaster Luke in his One with the Force form. Ashrad has also been accredited with the ability to utilise the Force Repulse, a powerful blast of telekinetic energy that is built up and unleashed upon all targets in close proximity. However, he has never displayed an aptitude for using this power, neither as a Jedi or Sith, so it isn't likely to come into play. As a reigning Dark Lord of the Sith, one of Krayt's most defining powers was his mastery of Force Lightning. Before his power had reached anywhere near its peak, he was able to kill multiple Yuuzhan Vong upon his escape from the unknown regions. An impressive display, considering the fact that the Vong are known to possess a partial resistance to the Force. Among other applications, Krayt has used his lightning to unlock Sith holocrons and kill several Rakghoul monsters during his battle with Celeste Morn and Karnis Mur, again whilst in his heavily weakened state. He could also channel this power directly into his opponents through physical contact, whilst applying Dark Transfer, which we will get into momentarily. During the events of the Apocalypse story, the heavily amplified Krayt also managed to drain, albeit for a brief instance, the weakened avatar of Abeloth and the injured Luke Skywalker, which although is another of his outlier accomplishments, it does speak to the additional knowledge of powers that Krayt has attained over the years. His telepathic prowess, even as a Jedi, was well developed, having felt the scream of multiple Jedi throughout the galaxy during the instigation of Order 66. During his time in stasis, the Dark Lord would use his telepathic mastery to send messages to his Darth Warlock hands, so his wishes could be heard throughout his order. And of course, he was able to touch the minds of every Sith in the galaxy after his rebirth, informing them of his return, which also seemed to cause Cade Skywalker a significant level of distress and pain. He would even go so far as to torment Cade after the young Jedi supposedly killed him. In addition, Krayt has utilised rather convincing Force illusions in an attempt to break the will of Cade Skywalker during their final encounter. A master of Tutor Minis or Force Deflection, Krayt has used his defensive power to casually defend himself from the lightning of Darth Warlock III, a Sith who possessed extraordinary power himself. As a man obsessed with immortality, Darth Krayt knew multiple forms of healing powers and life-expanding abilities, having been noted as using Sith techniques to prolong his own lifespan, and used healing meditations to aid in his coping with the Vong implants eating away at him. Most notably, after his encounter with Karnis Mur and Celeste Morn, Krayt unlocked the secrets of Dark Transfer. This power was a complex combination of Shatterpoint, Force Lightning, and Force Healing. During this power's application, the user must come into physical contact with their target, and is then able to perceive the weak points within the subject through metaphysical fault lines, and as such can pour Force energy into their body to heal even the most grotesque of injuries. However, when used in the opposite manner, this power can be used to devastating effect, and can be used to kill a target upon impact. And finally, Krayt implied that he had learned how to apply Essence Transfer, a power that allows its user to imprint their subconsciousness into the mind of a weak-willed target. In conclusion, Darth Krayt was an exceedingly knowledgeable Sith Lord who combined exceptional combative versatility and devastating raw power.
Both Darth Vader and Darth Krayt were two of the most powerful Sith Lords in history, and the contest of powers between the two would be a sight to behold. We would argue that Vader's mastery of telekinesis is superior to a slight degree in regards to both its potency and its application. However, this will not be enough to overcome Krayt's greater breadth of powers. While Vader can defend himself appropriately from the majority of Krayt's abilities, such as deflecting his lightning with his lightsaber and resisting Krayt's illusions, he falls short in his ability to retaliate in such a manner.
Such a level of versatility on Krayt's part allows him to essentially negate Vader's slightly superior telekinetic mastery. Krayt's lightning will still prove useful for keeping Vader on his toes, and force him to fight defensively more often, and illusions serve as viable distraction tools. And of course, Vader has no defense against Krayt's use of Dark Transfer. Although considering how this requires physical contact, this is unlikely to come into play, given Vader's superior skills as a physical combatant. We give Darth Krayt the edge in Force abilities. In this matchup, both Soup and I believe that the advantage to the winner would go 6 out of 10 rounds. We simply believe that these combatants are so closely matched that neither could find as fitting of an opponent as the other. The winner will be taking this victory by mere threads of superiority.
This duel will be taking place on top of the mining platforms of Mustafar, a force-neutral nexus with neutral ground. Both would attack simultaneously, believing they are familiar with their respective combatant. However, they would both soon find that each have grown into an even more deadly of an opponent. Krayt would test Vader's guard, lashing out with both sabers in quick succession to find an opening. Vader would continue to counter with tightly knit defense, riposting with surprising strength and deadly accuracy.
Amidst this exchange, Krayt would incorporate a kick to Vader's mask, blunting him with force-enhanced strength. Vader would be off-balanced, and Krayt's saber would land a glancing strike across his arm. Unabated, Vader recovers with a force push to protect himself and regain his footing. The push is deflected off, and with the distance still between them, Krayt unleashes a massive torrent of force lightning.
Vader catches the flow of lightning into his saber, but only barely. In closing the distance, he lands a powerful physical strike to Krayt's jaw, which would announce itself with a sickening crack as Dursteel meets human bone. They would re-engage in a duel of sabers, creating what would appear to be an infinite flow of red lashes to any of those who would spectate.
Vigorously they would combat one another, Vader's stronger and more power-driven fighting style finally pressuring Krayt's use of Naiman into failing him. Every attack from Krayt would initiate a quick counter from Vader, and every blow from Vader would tire Krayt's guard. Finally now realizing he has to win through his force power and not his saber, Krayt implements a force push into his offense, and unleashes his force lightning with renewed violence.
Off-balanced and winded by the force push, the lightning squarely hits Vader. His life support systems and mechanical limbs begin whirring in pain, and his breathing becomes more labored. Continuously the lightning flows through Vader, and only through his extreme endurance and deep hatred is he able to raise his saber to absorb the flow, more thanks to his use of the Force rather than his cybernetic arm, blasting forth a massive force wave. He blunts Krayt with his raw power and is soon dominating him with earth-shattering overhead strikes.
Krayt hangs on desperately, winded and tired. Vader's blade batters one of Krayt's sabers away, and even with all of Krayt's strength focusing on sustaining his guard, Vader breaks through and plunges his blade deep into Krayt's chest. Battered, struggling for breath, and completely spent, Darth Vader is declared the winner of the match.
I hope you guys enjoyed what was by far the closest matchup I've had to call yet. A big thanks to Rico Chico Malico, and a massive apology to Rico and the viewers for having to put up with my constant delays on this video. If this was done by the time Rico had his portion of the work done, it would have been out months ago. Speaking of which, if you haven't already, check out Rico's channel. There you'll find a massive volume of Star Wars vs. series videos, crossovers, as well as a great series on the lore of Force powers. If you enjoy my content, I can almost guarantee you will be a big fan of Rico's. The link is in the description down below. So to wrap things up, again, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, may the Force be with you.